and welcome back. Hello. Did you enjoy your lunch? I can't hear you. I'm all the way down here. Yes. Okay. Love it. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to We Summit 24, where we gather to explore, discuss, and celebrate the exciting world of esports. My name is Laura McCluckey, and it's my pleasure to be your host for the 2 days here in fantastic Busan at the Busan Esports Arena, the heart of esports here in South Korea. I'm thrilled to welcome you all to this year's event at the arena, and not to forget that we are supported by some very important and very special organizations. We are proudly supported by the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, Busan Metropolitan City, and the Busan IT Promotion Agency as well. All right, are you ready for the next session? This session is titled Revolution in Esports. Now, esports has seen its share of high-profile failures, including cheating scandals, abrupt cancellations of tournaments by the organizers, and technical infrastructure issues. This topic dives into some of the most significant failures in esports, and we're going to analyze what went wrong and look at what lessons we can learn to prevent such incidents in the future. The moderator for this panel is Ido Brosh, Esports Business Development. He's joined by panelists Nicholas Tafalos, esports journalist at esports.gg, Jean-Baptiste Roy, founding partner and CEO at Asia Sports Tech, and Lukas Klimczyk, Vice President of the Polish Esports Federation. Please join me in welcoming them to We Summit 24. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. Gentlemen, enjoy your session.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session titled Revolution in Esports. My name is Ido. We'll do a quick round of introduction with our excellent speakers today. Nick, you'd like to start?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicholas Tafalos, better known as Taffy. I'm an esports journalist working for esports.gg. I've been in the space for just about a decade now. I'm mainly based in Australia. I've previously worked at Esports and currently still work as well in Australia with Snowball Esports and Defrag. I've had the privilege to attend multiple international events and help tell the stories, I guess, of some of our best and brightest as well as the world's best and brightest when it comes to esports.
JB, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jean-Baptiste Roy. I've been in Asia for more than 15 years now. I'm the founding partner and CEO of Asia Sports Tech, which is a leading strategic growth advisory and investment advisory group in Asia Pacific, focusing on sports, esports, gaming, and lifestyle industries. And my background comes from strategic consulting, privately direct investment, and leveraging Asia, the growth platform in those new industries. So I look forward to share some of insights on how we can bring this revolution forward with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lukas?
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for this kind invitation and also for great hospitality in Korea. My name is Lukas Klimczyk. I am a Vice President of Polish Esports Federation, Secretary General of European Esports Federation, as well as board member of the International Esports Federation. By profession, I am a legal counsel. I've got my own law firm, which is specializing in providing legal services for traditional sports and also, of course, for the esports industry. Thank you.
Thank you. And a quick intro on myself. I am Ido Brosh. I'm the president of the Israeli Sports Association and incoming president for the Israeli Digital Games Development Industry Association, as well as the chair of the regulatory committee at the IESF. And I'd like to start with a big one, reflecting on the history of esports. And Nick, I think we'll start with you. What do you consider the most significant failure or setback the industry had faced? And what were the underlying causes that led to it?
I think we can talk a lot about events from previous decades when esports was, I guess, going through its growth period. But I think a lot of that is a lot of learning and a lot of early baby steps in trying to progress esports as a whole. I think in terms of a major failure, it's hard to look past Overwatch League for me, Blizzard's Overwatch League that wrapped up unceremoniously. More recently than some of these other failures that we could probably discuss. But I think systematically from both the gaming and the esports run side of things, it was just a disappointment. It was just really disappointing given that there was a lot of hype, a lot of interest and a lot of, I guess, expectation for how it could have gone, but to have it unceremoniously just be so flat, I guess, is just a downside. We could talk about it from a gaming perspective. There was a lot of discussion about the meta, about how the game was not esports ready. It wasn't given enough time to organically grow. But I think as we're going to be discussing, there's a lot of business side of things that were just an utter failure, I guess, across the board. JB, I mean, we can talk about the sort of I guess the know-how, the people who had the money and the people running things weren't exactly clued into what was happening.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's always, I mean, the fandom is critical, but as well the business structure in those organizations is critical too, and the people behind those organizations. I think Overwatch League is a great example of people ready to try to do too quickly, too soon, something they didn't really control, and really focus way too quickly on monetization and create a commercial product versus like understanding fandoms, where in esports and gaming is the core. The core is fandoms, is product, is culture. And maybe some of the stakeholders and investors behind that were much less familiar with these and try to rush things from their own prism, the way they view things, versus how you build an esports industry. So this really, we know it has been detrimental, especially in the US, because a lot of large stakeholders from the sports world invested in these leagues. So, and they put 20 plus million in franchise fees, and they say, okay, why are we investing in this? This doesn't work. It will never work. We know it's not the truth at all. We can see how esports is thriving in Asia, how different the ecosystems are, how big the teams are, how big the fandoms are. So we know it's not totally true, but it does impact it negatively, let's say in more the Western world, perception from investors into esports. Maybe to add on top of that, in my view, one of the biggest setbacks that the industry had is and it's kind of controversial, but is the amount of investment that came in pre-COVID into esports orgs. A flood of capital, same following a bit same trends as the Overwatch side. A lot of people say, okay, let's do it. It's the future. We can make money on it. We can monetize. A lot of people coming from very different backgrounds try to pour money into the industry with very high expectation, putting high pressure on orgs. That's the first thing. But the second, also giving it to founders of these orgs that were not equipped to, in my opinion, to build business models and build large enterprises around those. They were great gamers sometimes. They were great at building a team to win events. But this is not how you build an organization. And this has created a lot of setbacks and created a lot of lack of trust from investors and from partners, stakeholders, governments, and brands in the industry. So we thought it will accelerate the industry very fast, but actually it has, in my opinion, so far today, we're still paying the price of the phase story. Everyone in the industry is still paying that price out of one case. So I don't think it's fair at all when you see amazing orgs that have been built, like T1, Genji's, and so on, Talon, amazing orgs around the region that we have. I think we need to be fair in be better at promoting those great case studies to investors, to brands, and to partners. So I'm very thankful the amount of work that the IESF is doing to try to institutionalize this role, and as well talk with one united voice to the world of business where I come from.
I agree completely. And in this session, we're going to try and dive deep into what went wrong in several different aspects of the esports world. And we're going to start with cheating. Cheating scandals have repeatedly disrupted competitive integrity. And Lukasz, maybe you can give us some insights into that. How have these incidents impacted the trust between players, teams, and audiences? And what strategies can be implemented by IESF and by other organizations to prevent such issues moving forward?
Yes, of course, cheating and also fixing is always a huge problem, not only for esports but also for traditional sport, and it's always affecting the integrity of this discipline. That's why, for example, in traditional sport, the rules for anti-doping or for match fixing are so important because they secure that the discipline is integrated. And we know the model, we know the structure, how to handle such cases in a disciplinary matter or in some kind of dispute resolution system. So this is very important, and I think in future, as a IESF or in eSport, any other organization, continental organization or national federation should secure proper implementation of such rules. So make some standardization of rules, because we know that match fixing problems and anti-doping matters are extremely important from the perspective of integrity. We can, of course, present some examples of anti-doping cases in esports, as for example 2015 in Katowice in one of the tournaments. It wasn't a situation in which there was positive anti-doping control, but after a few months of the tournament, in some information, player provided information that he was using Adderall, which is a drug which contains a banned substance, and this opened huge discussion about the doping matters in esports, because everyone were thinking that the problems with cheating in esports is only technological doping, but this case shows to wider audience that this is not only technological doping, but also in esports we've got pharmacological doping. So it was extremely important case, and I think that in future we should also work not only as ISF but also with WADA to implement specific rules for anti-doping in esports. This is the main point, because not all substances, not all categories of banned substances or methods which are banned in anti-doping provisions are exactly used by the esports community, but in the second way, also there are few categories of banned substance or technological doping which need to be included in such lists. So this is the role of the International Federation, ISF, to work closely with WADA to prepare such regulation.
Nick, maybe we can discuss a real-life example of this with the CSGO bans that happened.
I guess it's a major impact that it had on Australasian Counter-Strike was the ESIC bans back in the late 2010s, where 36 players get banned for various gambling and match fixing problems. But the commission itself is, we've seen it from time to time. We've seen other examples of match fixing that have been in other regions, that there needs to be a lot of connection between the commission and the various authorities involved to make sure that the perpetrators are caught, to make sure that everything's handed out properly. It's my opinion and the opinion of others that they haven't taken the same sort of route and the same sort of ferocity, I guess, in other regions, and it's something that should really be globalized. It's something that something like the IESF, something that an international body can come in and help sort out a lot of these match-fixing, cheating scandals that erupt not just in the West and not just in very small markets that are easy to get into and easy to get contacts in, but also to hit them where it's hardest, in places like Europe. There are even regions of Asia where there's a serious problem with match-fixing. And when you want an integral competition and you want to be taken seriously, as esports does, it's vital that everything is being done to prevent it or slow it. And we've seen it in sports. It's not something that's related solely to esports, but it's something that esports has to grow through. And it's an issue that is going to be plaguing it for a while, but it's something that we need to take an international focus at, and not just beating up on the smaller regions. And the impacts of it down under, particularly in Counter-Strike, have been horrid. We've had the scene has struggled to grow as a result, and a lot of it is down to, I think we're going to be discussing it a bit later, down to education, something we'll definitely want to bring up.
Thank you for that. And I think that what I'm hearing from you, also from Lukas, is that there is a certain lack of governance when it comes to esports, certainly in comparison to traditional sports. JB, maybe you have some insights on that.
Yeah, I think Lucas put it exactly the way it should be put. The pharmacological doping and the technological doping are questions that happen in many current sports at the moment. we don't need to point them one from another, you know. And some issues are not seen as technical doping at some points because people don't really understand the technology behind it. But that's because there is no rule and regulation for it, and we have seen it in, you know, for example, when we started to see the appearance of carbon shoes, for example, in Olympics, and it wasn't, and now we know that actually some people were using it even prior on, where it was not even said that they were using these kind of devices and so on, so no one was checking for it. So I think there is so much that the esports, the industry should learn from traditional sports. Even they have their own challenges and face it in that and work hand in hand together. But one of the things is on the technological side, I believe that the industry could do, the esports industry could do an amazing work if they would work with very hand-to-hand with the publishers and with the lab technology providers. We have seen it when, you know, for example, of course, it's definitely there is a commercial element to it, but the partnership between Riot and AWS in how they are built, their system, their technology, their streaming, the amount of data collect from the players to the players, back to the leagues, full transparency model, it gives a great platform for everyone. It gives a great platform for the publishers, a great platform for the players, and a great platform for the brands. So as forward-looking as well, we'll discuss about this later, but the industry needs to be better at promoting, creating product, sponsorable product, monetizing themselves as well, and working with large stakeholders in the industry to be trusted. I think it's critical to put this issue at the forefront of the industry, said, we want to fix this, who is willing to solve those with us? So it's mandatory, I believe, and it's definitely a role for the IESF to be forward-looking in that issues, and technology is actually advancing as well, pharmacological doping. Me working across many sports industries, it is everyday challenge. And if we really push it at the edge of it, there are as well issues that will appear at some point. They start to appear in some sports. We have seen it at the Paris Olympics, issues with gender issues as well. So which category are you? Consider it as a doping or not? There is like integrity and ethics issues we have seen. She shouldn't fight in this category, men versus women, etc., etc. So those are, we want to build the future pathway, and we know these are issues that's gonna come up. So the industry needs to be ready to avoid any future setbacks, because we had some, and there is a lot of people that have hope that we're gonna build it for the future. So we need to be very well structured and work together to make sure we deliver something sustainable.
Amazing. I think that those are great insights. I'd like to now speak about mismanagement from the leadership level at esports organizations. Obviously, this kind of incidents that happens and still happens from time to time within esports organization has caused teams to disband and tournaments to collapse. The question is, what lessons can be learned and how they can be learned, via which program, which effort, about organizational governance and leadership within the esports ecosystem? And JB, maybe start with you on that.
That's a good one. I think the industries, I mean, like in traditional sports, come with a lot of people that are very passionate at the start, and maybe not, bringing people from large business backgrounds or broader skill sets to the industries, because it starts with grassroots, starts with small communities and so on. I think now the industries has the ability to bring, hopefully, these kind of leaders into it. There are very few personally that impress myself, that I'm getting impressed by their leadership culture and how they drive forces behind their orgs. Some are great, of course, but not everyone is, which sometimes are those when are getting the spotlight on for the wrong reasons. I mean, we know the cases that happens where some leaders in European orgs that were a bit, I'd say aggressive with some of their staff and so on, and it created issues in the orgs. It destroyed a bit of the trust even more in gaming, where it was one of the leading orgs. But this happened in traditional sports too. And if you think that, when this happens at the NFL or the NBA, they act right away and they force the owner of the slots to sell. So, however, as we know, the governance and the way the leagues are managed, the publishers are not willing to do this. They are not strong enough and they are not governed well enough to be able to impose that. They don't see this as a risk. Probably it's a lack of experience, but I think in the future they will. So we hope that the IESF will support the upbringing of future leaders of the ecosystem, and definitely esports education, work at a grassroots level, but also not only for the pure gaming part, but also looking at all the industries that are around esports, everything from game development to AI, IT, and so on, creation, to, content creation and so forth. The amount of value chain that actually the esports industry can drive, this is what government wants, and I think the industry and the federations should work hand in hand closer with those bodies to support them in guiding them through the changes.
I agree that this kind of collaboration between stakeholders is crucial for that. And when we talk about education, we don't only talk about the operational level of esports admins or referees or technicians and so on, but also at the leadership level. That's something that I think the industry sorely misses. Lukasz, Poland is kind of an esports capital in Europe, with cities like Katowice and Warsaw. Can you share with us a little bit about what you guys are doing in terms of esports education?
Thank you for saying that. Yes, of course. Our federation from the very beginning was saying that the main goal, main objective of our federation is education, not the competition side. Because we need to educate grassroots or the players, amateur one, semi-pro or pro, and then build on that educational system, good competition system and good competition system. So basically in Poland we established a educational system, educational program, which is divided into 8 textbooks for a 4-year period of time, and we are implemented it in high schools. Right now there are some about 60, 70 high schools which are in this program. Our federation right now in this year is working on online courses in this regard, but the main important thing in this program is that we are not learning how to play video games. We are not learning how to be a part of the, be a professional esports player. We are saying to these young people that you can use your skill, your knowledge in esports, in game development system, in new technologies, for your future career, not also in a career in esports, so as a professional player, but we are learning them that you can still be in this ecosystem, in this industry, but for example, not as a player, like as a lawyer, as a marketing guy, as a person who is working in game development industry. Because I fully agree with JB that government still is looking not for an esports competition, they are looking for some good educational programs which then they can use for building those young peoples into the future new market with new technologies and game development systems. So that's why this is one of the most important things from our side. But building the educational system is not only that we can create it in one country, because we should implement this not only in several countries, but also think about some educational system which will work continentally or internationally. And that's why I think that this is also a role for the European Esports Federation to build such a program, and also for the IESF to bring such educational program, which is not only focused on esports playing or training or playing video games, but also taking those knowledge, competence of those young people and bringing it to the future careers.
Now, we know that the main power in esports comes from its audience, right? The massive audiences, especially and certainly the younger generation that grows older and new people are getting into esports every day, is really the main source of power for this industry. It's the main viewership, it's eventually sponsors when they pay to get their advertisement on teams and organizers and tournaments. eventually want to get to that esports fan. And even the IOC, as the leader of the sports world, recognized that and is interested to get into the world of esports to tap into that audience. I want to talk about audience engagement and retention in esports. What critical missteps have been made that hinder the growth of esports? And how can the industry address these challenges to expand its fan base? Nick, maybe we can start with you.
For me, a lot of my time, particularly when I first started out, was working with Renegades, which is a former North American organization that picked up an Australian roster for Counter-Strike. Before that, they were into League of Legends, and it was obviously there was a lot of drama surrounding the organization in general. I think the major part, particularly for organizations when approaching audience and viewership retention, is keeping everyone interested. And I'm not just talking about the people who are watching, I'm also the people who are participating. When you're putting out a piece of content and it's not something that the players are enjoying and it's not something that they're willing to promote, it's a negative. People are not willing to participate when they see the people involved are not interested, not showing enough interest. So it's about adapting, I guess, to what the players are willing to do, and as a player, adapting yourself to do more to benefit not just yourself, but the rest of your team, the rest of the organization, and esports in general. That's probably where major focus would be there. On audience retention, I know we weren't really going to discuss it, but I did want to pick your brain, particularly JB. We spoke about the idea of pay-per-view, the idea of charging viewership for esports fans. It's a contentious one. I can tell from when we were talking about it. Why doesn't it work? Why doesn't a platform like that, where an organizer can charge, even if it's $2, what is it that won't work? Is it just that because esports is wanting to be different? Give us a bit of insight on that. What do you think,
JB?
Usually in media, whatever you do, sports media, if you give it for free, it's very hard to charge after.
Yeah.
And I can give you lots of examples of in traditional sports of IPs that wanted to grow very fast. And you get the eyeballs, so they give the content for free, but you can never charge again afterwards. So the thing is, traditionally, esports has always been free to watch everywhere. So the thing is, this is so strong in the core DNA for me of esports viewership that we shouldn't try to only listen to traditional sports media people who say we're going to monetize per pay-per-view, that this is the holy grail and the only reason why the industry cannot grow is because we can't have that. I don't think like this. I think we should be much smarter in understanding how to grow, retain the audience. I think some orgs are approaching maybe 10 years old, and they have fans that were maybe 15, 20 when they started. Now they are in their 30s. You go to a Blast Major tournament or you go to a KCX Carmine Court experience, tickets are not cheap and audience is not 15. So average age is much in the perfect range that the brands want to target. And the audience nowadays want to be engaged with D2C, don't want to pay retainer at all in any, whether from your gym membership to so on and so forth. Every business is now that is pure SaaS driven is suffering because new consumption patterns are different, even more in Asia versus, let's say, the rest of the world. So the industry needs to adapt. Need to be smarter in how you monetize and smarter in how you engage as well with the fans. I think there is a lot of growth and revenue opportunities for orgs to build, but few factors have been hard for them to build a strong team identity and a team brand, org brand. Few have done it, but many haven't. And as well, now the complexity of having to chase to create new roster to get grants for EWC has created even more disruption to some teams' identity creation versus short-term cash grant on a team for the team to present the team to EWC. So this is creating imbalances, and now leaders in the team are unsure: should I favor team culture brand building and fandom support versus opening many rosters in many titles to get grants and be at DWC and support it. It's complex, and actually right now it's stretching a lot of teams. Yeah. So, and this, in my opinion, is a huge risk. It could be seen as something great for the industry. It's bringing cash to the teams and the orgs. However, as an international federation and body, we need to be very careful that is increasing systematic risk for the team.
Great. I want to talk a little bit about operations. We know that esports is global, right? It's global, but it faces a lot of regional challenges. And Lukasz, maybe we can start with you on that. Can we discuss a little bit about specific failures that occurred or continue to occur in different regions? Maybe we can discuss East Europe to start with, and how overcoming these obstacles can promote a more unified international esports community.
Sure. I think that European Esports Federation are unified in European Esports Federation, and also we've got, I think, common strategy and common goals in further development of esports in Europe. So that's the good point. But of course, we also have our own challenges in Europe. I think that the first challenge in Europe is that not all federations are equally organized and recognized by their own government, by their own sport federations or national Olympic committees. And I think that this is the role of EEF, to strengthen the position of our members in European countries. That is also why I think that all European countries decided to elect Mr. Andrzej Kraśnicki as a president of EEF, because he's a well-known, recognized sport figure in the traditional sport and also in the Olympic movement, and I truly believe that his contacts, his knowledge and experience will help to receive such recognition by our member federations. And I also know that from our perspective as a Poland, it is very important, because from 2023 we are a member of Polish Olympic Committee, and this gives us lots of opportunities. Also in accordance to the competition, to the educational fields, and also looking for a sponsors or partnerships. For example, yesterday we've got a press conference with Ministry of Digitalization in Poland, because Ministry of Digitalization decided to work with us closely on building sustainable ecosystem in Poland of esports, and they decided to create some expert group, including Polish Esports Federation members, athletes and scientists, to work on such model rules, which will be then adapted into Polish market. But of course, such proposals can then be used in Europe. And I also think that this is not only the recognition issue, but also competition issue. So I think that in Europe, we should also work on creating more competition on student levels, schools levels, also national levels. And also not by creating some big projects, like, for example, European championships, but maybe by creating some smaller regional championships. As, for example, the good example will be V4 initiative, so initiative of Poland, Czech, Slovakia and Hungary, and tournaments between those 4 countries. So I think that in future it will be very good option and opportunity for other countries in Europe, for example, Scandinavian one, Balkan ones, to create such tournaments. And also from my perspective in Poland, I think that we need to focus on building stable esport teams, because right now there is a lot of problems with ecosystem in Poland, because they are creating lots of players creating very fast lots of organizations, but then they are not they are withdrawing from this organization, and we do not have stable structure in this regard. So this is from the Polish market main point in which we should focus in 2025.
I think it's a great example of a regional challenge. I also think that from the operational perspective, there is also the question of latency, especially when we talk about online tournaments, right? For example, in Israel, we play on the European servers due to cultural and other considerations in League of Legends and Dota and other games. And obviously that creates a certain disadvantage when it comes to latency because people in Europe has a much better ping to the game server than people that are based in Israel. Nick, I think you also have similar challenges in Australia, right?
Yeah, I think if we could drag the whole continent up to the North Atlantic and be able to participate, that would be great. I think that would be too expensive. Yeah, Australia's got a pretty bad spot in terms of connectivity. You know, we ping out to Singapore, which is great. Southeast Asia is thriving, but when we do it at a non-competitive level, or we force teams to move to the western half of the country, it's not particularly viable and not something that teams are willing to invest in and do. So grassroots growth, as we were talking about before, is kind of the main point in Australia, at least right now, in trying to get participation up, trying to get a lot of interest up, and I guess trying to have everyone get involved, not just be someone who consumes the esports competition or is a player, but to do everything else, to be able to work as someone in back of house tech, to work as a commentator, to work as a journalist. That's I guess that's the major point, and something that people and fans should really look into doing a lot more, and not just be someone who is just, yeah, I watch the games, I play the game at home and I watch at home, but I don't really do anything else. If there's an opportunity to get involved and get amongst it, then that's what I think. It's on the people in esports and on the fans to really do that, because yeah, we're not moving the country. It's not possible. So there's certain not yet. Maybe 1,000 years.
maybe more, maybe less. We're gonna try to speed it along a little bit so we have some time for questions. But I really want to dive into the topic of sponsorship, monetization, and generally how to finance what we are doing here. JB, maybe we can start with you on that. We already discussed the significant failures and some examples that occurred in these areas, but how can esports develop a more robust financial models to support its growth?
I think we are on a better pathway that we had ever been. From an industry standpoint, people talk about the winter, but I think it's getting more sustainable. We have publishers who are starting to share a little bit more secured revenue with some visibility for the teams on the media side as well on the digital asset side. We have seen, the changes why so many orgs, would jump into Valorant and the VCT. It has given a very new framework that was very much needed, and as well make it as an invitational franchise, allow them to choose the orgs for some of the right values, especially values. Let's talk about this way, but also fandoms, because they understood that a lot of monetization in games come from digital assets. And I think this is where the team deserve a big part. It's like jerseys for Premier League teams. So, and it's sold left, right, center, and we can see, it's sometimes some of the biggest revenue driver for the orgs, especially when they reach top level performance. So there is a correlation as well. But even if they don't perform like crazy and they have a very good, strong fandom, the fandom will support and buy their digital assets. So this has helped for sure. And I believe that those initiatives will push more publishers to work along those lines and give more secured revenues to teams and with some visibility to build a more sustainable financial model. The second piece is, as I discussed briefly about earlier, is the influx of cash at the moment coming from participation in WC. This is definitely has helped orgs and is supporting orgs. We hope to get some more visibility for what's happening in the coming years. This is the risk we have now, is we know it's great, even if there are always rules that are coming up and are not always very clear, but I believe that it will be clarified and it will help orgs and to have a better cash flow forecast on that front. we know that, of course, the integration of esports in the for the IOC is giving, hopefully, another revenue source and giving more legitimacy to esports orgs to tap into new type of advertisers and new type of brands. However, we do know that at the moment there is a lot of lack of visibility related to this product. So this, I'm going revenue line one by one right now of what a P&L of an org is, and and more or less managing probability risks of each of these future revenues. But the biggest piece is, as we discussed before, is how can they engage their audiences and how can they monetize their audiences. Some orgs are very, very good at monetizing from merchandising. Some are not very strong at all. Some are very strong in monetizing on content and brand partnerships. Some are very weak at. I believe that the industry needs to be much better in creating sponsorable product, but also needs to be much better at delivering those sponsorship assets. There will be a lot of issue in delivering sponsorship assets from teams, not really understanding the rights they have with their players, the right they have with their orgs, the right they have with the publishers, and overselling rights that they didn't have. This is the 101 of sports sponsorship, and many orgs have fallen into that. So I do believe there is a lot of education that needs to be done and bring proper educated sports sponsorship knowledge into the industry.
And I think, that's a very good point of how do we get the audiences to spend more money on esports, right? Because they used to get everything for free. But if we look at sports, we see that people and fans that are engaged with other types of sports spend much more money on merchandise and on tickets and on so many other things in those other sports. So Nick, really quickly, because we are almost out of time, how can we get the audiences be in favor of spending more money on esports?
I think it's just trying to tap in and target everyone with just a variety of different approaches, I guess, whether it be something like an activation or whether it be something that is just purely for online viewership. I know from attending multiple events, mainly as a fan, that there's a lot of space at these events that could have been better used to throw up an activation, to get more people involved and to be more diverse in how you approach and connect with your fan base. So from an organizational standpoint, I think the main thing is just knowing your audience. I think that was the biggest downside when we were at Renegades, was that we were this North American organization with a primarily Australian lineup that didn't really target the Australian audience in any way. Whether it be just something like merchandise, whether it be the language used in the in social connections, that sort of thing. So, yeah, being able to really know your audience, get to know them, and provide options. That's probably the major thing. That's something that organizations at least need to do, but also organizers. If you've got this space at an event where you could have some sort of display, whether it just be a cardboard box, that's going to get people started. That's something that people can connect with and get onto and get involved with. So, yeah, being able to be diverse and efficient with what you've got.
I would add one thing to that is way too much emphasis on winning and performance versus building a brand and building a business. This is the flaw of sports as well. But I think in esports, there is way too much focus on organizing competition, doing competition, and try to win and perform, which this is not how you build a sustainable brand, always, because you will lose. And there is not always correlation between winning and financial success. I think can learn that from traditional sports as well, and this is something the industry struggles to, because a lot of the orgs as well have been created by former players or people in the competition that they just want to win.
What I can just add to this point, to the financial model, I think that we also need to look for the diversification. So not only look for sponsorships, but also look for some local government funds. As for example, a very good example is Busan City or Katowice City, which are supporting local initiatives, esports initiatives, also by the government. So this is another part of potential funding for the organizations, and also some grants or some finances from programs which are, for example, regional as V4 or from the projects of European Union. I think that this is also a point which was not right now used by the esports organization, but in the future it is a huge amount of money which can be directly sent to esports organizations.
All right, guys, it's been super interesting. There are several things that we didn't have time to get into. But just as a final comment, I'd like to say that all of the things that we discussed and all of the failures that we've seen are symptoms of an industry that is fragmented. We have several different stakeholders with a very loose alliance between them. Sometimes they work with each other, sometimes they don't work with each other. And only by creating an international collaboration model between stakeholders and between nations, the industrial value and the public interest value of esports, and not just as a sport, but also as a recreational culture, can be expected to grow in a much more dramatic way than it is now. And I think that the IESF can work to ensure that esports become a key industry and recreational culture in every nation. An industry that can eventually lead the world of esports at some point in the future. I'd like to thank you guys for participating in this panel today and open the floor for any questions in the time that we have left.
Thank you. I'll start because I think that something that maybe should have been touched is the actual events, huge events that we saw in the past, like the regional Esports World Cup that was back in 2002-03 happening. WESG, I don't know if some of you remember it, some of you don't, where World Cyber Games used to be to 2011, and where is it now? What were the main reasons for all those things to now stop exist or, as we see, evolve into something else? Was it needed to die first and then to get like reborn into something new? Was it part of the process? Was it actually a fuck up? This is something that I believe should be talked. And are those big things, those big problems happening, causing more damage to esports or helping it? Or maybe all the small league organizers, because as a person who works with more than 150 countries, the number of small tournament organizers that exist, that do subpar tournaments, even some bigger organizations, tournaments with no prize funds, or they promise prize funds and they don't pay it, or they need to return the tickets and they don't return the tickets to the players. So actually using the players and the esports as a tool to just grab some quick sponsorship money, you know, hustle around it, and then disappear. So those are the two things that I believe are real danger in esports, but we see the big fuck-ups somehow evolve into something else, have an evolution like in Pokemon, and they become something bigger. But we see the small ones actually just becoming more hustler, more professionals in hustling. So I think those are the topics that I believe that our audience, and if you can comment on it, because we're recording all this and it will be some kind of a legacy that we can share. Thank you.
I'd like to just say, and I'll give the floor to our panelists, that as you mentioned, there in some cases have been an evolution, right? And in other cases, it's been a devolution. We can hope...
And a revolution.
Yeah, I was about to say we can hope that it's all part of the esports revolution, right? Into becoming a very healthy industry down the road. Any other panelists want to engage?
I did say we were going to have a bunch of other events that we wanted to bring up, but a lot of our questions were focused around a variety of topics. One in particular, I think, was the CGS 2008-2009, the Counter-Strike Source tournament that pretty much blew up essentially in everyone's face. And I think a lot of similarities can be drawn between that and the Overwatch League, even though they were a decade or so apart. But yeah, I think when you mention these smaller missteps, that there's definitely things to learn from them as opposed to just learning from these huge tournaments that have had millions of dollars of backing that then blow up because of a technical fault or investment that led to that was leading up into COVID, for example. A lot of people will put COVID down as a major, I guess, drawback, and it was a drawback for everything. It's something that esports is just everyone's got to learn from it, And but yeah, I think you're right in that a lot of these smaller missteps are definitely, I would say, learning experiences. Particularly, I know we've had a couple down in Australia where there were a lot of tournaments that were subpar. A lot of tournaments that were run by people who probably shouldn't be anywhere near esports because they just don't know, they just don't get it, they don't have, I guess, the more business incentive than passion. But at the same time, I think you've got to find the balance because passion doesn't pay the bills at the end of the day.
I think, Boban, you're pointing some of the right points in terms of the structuring of the ecosystems and definitely the risk at the bottom level. I think the evolution we are into, I think is, as I say, is very positive from where we were in terms of quality, if you're not terms of even organizations. We just came back from the HOK finals in Beijing. That was a tournament, amazing quality, amazing standards. Many sports organizations in the world cannot deliver this. So I think the esports industry should be very, very proud of being able to deliver this kind of quality of experiences, this kind of quality of broadcast and global live audiences, and actually unity. Very, very few product in the world of media and entertainment can unite people from all around the world watching it. So I think the esports industry has gold in its hands, and I think with the emergence of large tournaments like the WC, etc., is showing to the world what esports experience is. So, but as international governing body, definitely you will only want to be and make sure part of that you set the standards and everyone is following the standards. But I think it's about patience and finding as well the right organizations, the right regional, the right local country to put in the light. We'll see who wins Organization of the Year this year, They will put the light on them. They have done amazing work, maybe some people around in the room probably that have done amazing work in structuring their organization in every pre-season tournament, but also grassroots, but also so on and so forth, and try to pave the way for the future. I think this is what the industry needs to work on and put those leaders and those innovators at the forefront in order to drive the change and the revolution, as you said. Of course, there will be setbacks, but at least if you identify the right leaders, we will be able to move forward faster. Before, without leadership and maybe wrong talent identification, this is where risks are.
So
I think,
I'll just add that I think that those smaller and bigger problems in the esports industry is a part of the evolution. Because it's always, if you are comparing it to traditional sport, there were always such problems or some obstacles which such traditional sports also needed to face up. So I just think that also without such problems, there will be not today's discussion between us. So that's good point to learn from such problems and also to develop that in future we will not face it again.
all right, thank you for that, and I'd like to thank you also for the question.
Yeah, there is one question. Hi, I'm Nandan Jha. It's from New Delhi, founder of SOG Federations and partner with IESF. So one small question. All India is one of the largest polluted country in the world. More than 600 million youths playing esports there. The word revolutions and evolutions is missing in India. Any advice speakers can give so we can take some mantra from here and make India really proud in the sector of esports. Thank you.
I can tell you that I not so long ago hosted a very big tournament, online tournament in India, a very passionate esports audience over there. And actually, I had a discussion in a different panel in a different event last year, and I made the bet, so to speak, that India will become the next esports powerhouse because of the dedications of the gamers there. It's a very mobile-heavy crowd. They mostly play on the mobile esports games, so that's definitely a focus. My advice would always be to take the growth in a very sustainable manner, match the investment to the people and how much they are also willing to spend and how much sponsorship you can get. But otherwise, there is really no limits to what India can achieve in this space. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I think even if you have a very nascent ecosystem, you already have large and
We are expecting answer from you.
fruitful organizations like Nodwin, who are leading the changes as well and in the structuring of the ecosystem across the region as well. So that's one piece. I mean, we all know the main reasons of the setbacks in the last few years is opening and closing the door to publishers in the last, 5, 6, 8 years. This has been detrimental to the growth of the ecosystem. The publisher owns the ecosystem. So if you are not willing to work hand in hand with them, that's the complexity. We understand there are geopolitical issues behind this. We know it. But this is the fate of esports. So if you keep on wanting to wait to have local games pushed by local players to build that, I think the ecosystem will grow way faster. So in my opinion, to build the industry should be more open-minded, working with publishers from around Asia, because they are the biggest publishers. Of course, there is that. We can talk about the Krafton case and so on and so forth. So I think this is the biggest risk and the biggest issue that hinder the ecosystems. But even with this, there is still passion, there is growth, there is good organization, there is more teams, there is willingness for people to invest. But this has scared investors, not only foreign investors, org owners, but as well Indian investors. They want to do it, but they are like, look, if I do it, I invest, and the day after we shut it down, everything, I have no visibility. So I think he's showing that if your role is explaining and find the right way to explain all the economics from the grassroots, the education and the economic values of it, and of course the cultural benefits that it has, to the right people in the government to prevent future shutdowns, I would say.
Thank you very much.
We really have a few seconds left, so please.
Okay, so very quickly, I'll just add from the mind sports perspective on a few things that you guys have touched on. You've covered topics which are actually seminar on their own. They're too wide and too deep to actually cover with just a few comments. But I'll start with the education, because that's one of my babies that I'm always looking at. Don't look or focus only on the potential careers within esports. Look at the development of the human brain and the development of human life skills. Okay, so what we try to do, and we cover chess, bridge, drafts, Go, esports, mahjong, card games, shangxi. So we're covering all the sports which are very similar to esports in principle. And what we encourage is the development of multiple intelligence, life skill, and so on. Not the fact that you might end up as a designer or a coder or whatever. That's just an additional benefit if you end up doing something that you're passionate about. Okay, but you should say, yes, you become a better, we call them future citizens. So that's the first objective, that yes, we want to learn mind sports. Esports is one of the mind sports, because you become a better citizen of the future. That's the first principle. Second, when we talk about fair play, you talked about a lot of things on match fixing. Match fixing happens when there's sports betting. And on esports, there is sports betting. So match fixing will always be there. And you need to build in ethical practices. Your problem as an industry, as a sport, is you're not in control completely of the title, like traditional sports. If I'm doing chess, the World Chess Federation is controlling. In esports, the publisher is controlling, and the publisher may not care. And if the publisher doesn't care, how do you enforce something as The publisher is paying money. Athletes, sorry guys, I've worked with athletes in several sports all my life. Athletes don't care. They follow the money. Okay, so very few of them have the principle of saying, ethically, you know, there's the publisher is allowing some sort of cheating. As long as they're paying the money, and some of them are paying big bucks, they'll follow. So that's something you'll have to work around with. When we come to WADA, very quickly, there are two major areas where mind sports benefit from doping. One is concentration, where you have drugs which actually improve your concentration and length of concentration. And the second is the energy levels. And those are the two key areas, you know, which is basically stimulating your memory and so on. So those are the areas that WADA relatively controls. I've had long discussions with WADA on many of these areas. Again, we can share some principles if you want at a later stage. I'll even give you some articles where there have been benefits of which drugs benefit in chess, for example. Okay, so I'll stop, but there's other points that we can make about many of the areas.
Yeah, thank you so much for this great and insightful comments. I appreciate it. We are out of time, unfortunately, so let's give a big round of applause to our great speakers today. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope that it's been an interesting session for you, and looking forward to the next sessions.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Please, one more big round of applause for our fantastic panel. And I'll ask you to stay where you are for now, because we're just about to take a break. By the way, I've been standing back there for about 25 minutes. I've got heels on. Wrap it up. Okay, guys, we've got so many fantastic sessions coming up next. Before we go to a break, I want to remind you the next session is in Korean, okay? So if you don't have one of your little ear things that make you very technologically advanced, please go and get one, and you can enjoy the next session. The next session we have is Tech-Driven Esports. We'll see you in 15 minutes. Thank you.